Greetings and salutations, YouTubers. This is Zillafan85, and I'm doing another figure review today. This is, of course, my Gashapon Gorosaurus figure. This is the only version of Gorosaurus that I have, the only figure, I should say, of Gorosaurus that I currently have. I am kind of debating on maybe getting, there's a YMSF version of him, but it is quite pricey, so I'm kind of torn right now, especially with the holidays coming up. But you know, I'm certainly happy to have this one in my collection. I'm definitely a big fan of Gorosaurus. You know, wouldn't be like a top 10 favorite kaiju of mine, but he's not too far off. He is one that I really happen to like a lot. And you know, obviously, you know, if any of you have been watching all along, you'd know that I really do like my mini, you know, Gashapon figures. These high-grade figures are really, really nicely done for the most part, and this one I definitely like a lot too. I don't know if I would say that's 100% movie accurate, but it's still pretty nicely done overall. Gorosaurus first appeared in the film King Kong Escapes from 1967. I believe this version is essentially based off of that one. And then really his only true film appearance otherwise is in Destroy All Monsters, you know, which was the following year. The suit was essentially the same, though, I believe, so there really wasn't any difference anyway. You know, Gorosaurus had a really good fight with Kong, though, in King Kong Escapes. Even though he, you know, any spoilers here, I apologize, even though he had his jaw busted by Kong, but it was a pretty cool fight nonetheless. Almost debatable whether I like that fight better or the fight that Kong had against Mechani Kong, but nonetheless, though, like I said, that was his first appearance, and of course, seen in Destroy All Monsters, you know, where he's part of the kaiju collection on Monsterland, Monster Island, set loose by the Keylocks. You do see him attacking, well, there's that scene of course, for any of us Godzilla fans, we know that famous scene in Paris where it was meant to be Baragon attacking the city and burrowing up through the ground, destroying the Arc de Triomphe. But as I mentioned in my previous video, which was actually my Baragon Gashapon figure that I have, you know, because Baragon was being used so much for the Ultraman series and the suit had been modified and deteriorated so much that they actually replaced Baragon with Gorosaurus in that scene. You do see Baragon a couple times in the movie. They had to basically create a new head for him, and you know, only had very limited use because of the poor condition of the suit. Otherwise, I believe he would have had a bigger role in the film. But nonetheless, though, Gorosaurus had a good role, and especially so in that final battle on Mount Fuji against King Ghidorah. Gorosaurus is really one of the main combatant kaiju, you know, from the monsters of Earth that gathered up against King Ghidorah, and he had some nice, you know, moves and you know, attacks that he laid on King Ghidorah, you know, because a lot, you know, even though he usually relies on his strength because he is actually very powerful physically and he's got a strong bite, so he relies on his bite very much along with his claws, but then he's got that famous kangaroo kick and he actually knocked King Ghidorah down to the ground with it. So that was really, really cool. I like his roar a lot too. It's a modified version of the Varan roar with the more sped up version of it in a higher pitch, and which I also did forget to mention in my previous video that the Baragon roar from the Showa era is also a modified version of the Varan roar as well. But I like that roar a lot, so I don't really mind its use in a few different kaiju. And the version that they did for it for Gorosaurus, I think, really works. He is a dinosaur kaiju. I believe he's actually more based on an Allosaurus than a T-Rex. I always used to think he was more of a T-Rex, but later came to find out he was actually more based off of an Allosaurus type dinosaur. But he's a really cool kaiju nonetheless. And, so I definitely like him a lot, and I'm definitely at least happy to have the Gashapon version in my collection. Whether or not I do go for that YMSF version, I'm still, like I said, still toying with right now. Unfortunately, you didn't really see him in too many other, film appearances. I know he appeared in an episode of that series, Go Godman, which I've never seen, as basically an enemy for Godman, during that episode. And I know that suit was kind of messed up at that point, but, like I said, I don't really know too much, otherwise than that. And then really you see him in stock footage a couple times, just like with Baragon, but unlike Baragon, who did actually appear in the Millennium series, we really haven't seen Gorosaurus since the Showa series. Wish he would have had a part in Final Wars. It was kind of disappointing that he didn't, but nonetheless, though. So, as far as the figure goes, like I said, they did do a pretty good job with it here. We'll start with the paint job, as usual. It's got this sort of greenish paint all around for the main part of his body. It's like a greenish tealish paint. That's basically the color of his skin. So that's pretty accurate overall. So they did a pretty nice job with that. On his underbelly, it's almost this sort of yellowish greenish skin tone there, as you can see. So whereas you got that darker color with that greenish tealish color, and then here you got the yellowish greenish color. So it's a nice little contrast, and it's pretty nicely done. It's pretty simple overall, the paint job. Otherwise, you've got the white and red eyes, the red pupils. I don't 100% know why they did that with him, because that's not really movie accurate there, but I mean it still looks pretty cool nonetheless. And then otherwise you got sort of this off-whitish color for the teeth and the finger claws and toe claws. So you can kind of see there better look with the eyes and the claws and what have you. So that's pretty much it for the paint job. For the detailing, I definitely do like what they did here. You can kind of see, I want to make sure the picture stays in focus, but he's got these bumps all around his body, as well as the scaling of his skin as well. So he's really got that lizardy look here about him. So I think they did a really nice job with that, and did a really nice job in the on the underbelly with the line segments and everything as well, which you can see all around him. Like I said, all the scaling that they've got. They got the row of spikes that go down his back and all down his tail, as you can see there. Very nicely done. They kind of narrow off towards the end. They even did include, because he's got that weird needle tip at the end of his tail, and they essentially did include it here in the figure, so you can kind of see it. I want to try and make sure it stays in focus. Like I said, I do my best that I can here, but you can kind of see it though. So that was a nice little detail inclusion there. You got some detailing drawn for the teeth, so it's not just all one blank, white paint job there. So you can actually see the teeth pretty nicely there, including with the fangs and whatnot. So I like that a lot. So that pretty much covers for detail. And then really otherwise just articulation, but again, the mini, Gashapon figures, for the most part, really none, and this one's pretty much falls in line with that, so there really is no articulation here. Like I've said all along, most of the Gashapon figures don't have any articulation. If you really do see any ever, it's essentially mainly because because the parts go into place, so they're kind of movable that way. But there are a couple where they actually do have joints that rotate and what have you. But for the most part, though, pretty standard. So this one pretty much falls in line. You can see it kind of got to try to keep it pushed in like that. So anyway, though, so that pretty much covers the figure. I think it's really nicely done. These are very common. You can find them online on eBay and what have you, and they're pretty affordable. You know, as is usually the case with these Gashapon figures. So when you're looking to build up your collection and you don't really have have a lot of money to spend, these Gashapon figures are definitely the way to go. That's why I always recommend them. And I really love them a lot. Like I said, I still have plenty of others to go through, and I'm definitely going to be covering a lot more Gashapon figures that I have in my collection. I'm definitely going to cover some of my regular size figures as well. So we'll get to all that. But other than that, though, I think that pretty much does take us through the end of the video. Like I said, I really like Gorosaurus a lot. I wish that we would see him more than we have, because otherwise, other than maybe some comic appearances and whatnot, I really haven't gotten to see him too much. So hopefully Toho will get their act together, losing a bit of faith like some of our other fans are, lately with this whole anime series debacle and what have you. I got my own thoughts and opinions on that. I'll just say I'm not the craziest of that anime trilogy thus far. We'll see what the Planet Eater is like, but nonetheless, though, like I said, I really like Gorosaurus a lot. Again, not one of the main five, not one of the big five kaiju, but a really awesome one nonetheless. So, just like some of the others that have commented on my videos here have said too, kaiju like these definitely deserve more recognition than they get, because we do love them. Anyways, folks, like I said, that does pretty much take us to the end of the video. I do want to thank you so much for watching. If you would like to subscribe, please feel free to do so. If you would like to like and or comment on any of my videos, please feel free to do so as well. And just remember, until next time, ladies and gentlemen, you be good to yourselves, and sayonara.